Hello students, today we are going to discuss about the remaining topics of reproduction in plant. By the end of that lecture, you would be able to know about the process of pollination, types of pollination, structural adaptation of flower on the basis of pollinating agent, the process of fertilization in plant, and seed germination. First of all, we will discuss about pollination. Pollination is actually the transfer of pollen grains from anther to stigma. It's actually the transfer of pollen grain from male reproductive part to female reproductive part of plant, right? Male reproductive part is anther while female is stigma. So it means within anther pollen grain will develop and that will transfer to stigma of flowering plant. Now, this pollination lead to fertilization. Fertilization is actually the fusion of male and female gametes within ovules. Uh, there are different types of pollination, so we will discuss about that in detail. The first two is cross-pollination and self-pollination. Cross-pollination, pollination that happen between two different plants, while self-pollination, pollination that happened within same plant. Now, on the basis of pollinating agent, pollination also divided to two other types. Wind pollination, pollination in which wind play important role, so that is called wind pollination. While pollination in which insect play important role, that is insect pollination. Okay, but remember the basic type, if we are going to mention that in the exam, that will be cross pollination and self pollination. Okay, now let us discuss these types in detail. The first one, cross pollination. In cross pollination, pollen grains are transferred to a different plant. It means pollen grain that develop an anther that will transfer from one plant to the stigma of another plant. Okay, cross pollination, is it happening in two different plants, so genetic variability is more within plant that develop as a result of cross pollination. If genetic variability is more, so it means that plant can adapt to the new change environment easily. Okay, while another type we have self-pollination. Pollen grains are transferred within same plant. In self-pollination, you can see here, in self-pollination, pollen grains are transferring from anther to stigma within the same plant. It may be within same flower. You can see here, from this anther, the pollen grain is transferring to the stigma of the same flower. Or self-pollination, it can be happen between two different flower of same plant. Here, from this anther, pollen grain is transferring to the stigma of this flower, but still it is in the same plant, so it's called self-pollination. Is it happening within same plant, so genetic variability is less within that plant that develop is a result of, or that form is a result of self-pollination. And if genetic variability is less, so that plant having less chances to adapt with new change environment, right? Now, advantage of self-pollination: preserve well-adapted genotype. Genetic variability is less in self-pollination. So the plant that develop, that if the parent having a well-adapted genotype, or the parent having a good character, so that will remain same, that will preserve, no changes will come. So this is one of the advantage of self-pollination. And no, is it happening within same plant, so no need of pollinating agent like wind and insect. Disadvantage of self-pollination is genetic decreased genetic variability. It less genetic variability, less chance to adapt with the new change environment. Okay. Cross-pollination advantages: increased genetic variability. Is it happening between two plants? So genetic variability is more. If genetic variability is more, so more chances are possible to come within the new plants, and that may lead to evolution is actually the change that coming within uh, organism. So it means those plants that are developing through cross pollination, they're having more chances of evolution. They have, they strong evolutionary potential, so more chances of evolution. Adaptation to changing condition is genetic variability is coming in these plant, so that these plant having more chances to adapt with new changing environment. Maybe the parents having no that character that enable them to live in the new environment, but because of genetic variability, upspring having now more chances to adapt with the new changing environment is a reason, because new gene may arise, yeah, new allele will arise as a result of this genetic variability. Disadvantage: can destroy well adapted genotype. It is also possible if genetic variability is coming, it's also possible that if the parent having good character, well adapted genotype, maybe that destroy is a result of genetic variability. So this is one of the disadvantage of cross pollination. Depend on pollinating agent. Is it's happening between two different plants, so it's they need wind or insect to transfer the pollen grain to transfer pollen grain from one plant to another plant. Okay. Wind pollination that happen by wind. So wind pollinate, like another one we have insect pollination, pollinated insect pollination that brought about by insect. Now, wind pollinated flower and insect pollinated flower, there are structural adaptation in the flower in which pollinating the pollinating agent, is wind, so that are structurally adapted for the wind, while insect pollinated flowers structurally adapted for insects, so that more easily pollination happen in that. So we will discuss about that now. The flower are structurally adapted to pollination. So first one is insect pollinated flower are adapted to attract insect to them to enable transfer of pollen grain. So remember those flower in which pollination happening through insect, that petal will be brightly colored petals, so that it attract the insect. Interpositioned inside, especially inter of these flower are remain inside the flower, so that it rub the pollen on insect will transfer that pollen grain, right? And the pollen grains of these plants, these flower having certain hooks or certain spikes, barbs, right? So that it stick on the insect easily. Another, it's contain nectar and scent present. It contain nectar, it contains sugary, these flower contain sugary substance that attract the insect for pollination. And stigma sticky, the stigma of these flower are sticky, okay? So that it's, the stigma is sticky, so that will collect the pollen grain easily, okay? Now, wind-pollinated flowers are different in structure because they don't have to attract insect to them, but don't need, but do need to expose to wind. So for that reason, the first adaptation, it's no need to attract the insect. So petals are small and green, and there is no need to attract insect. Insect-pollinated flower that are bright and colorful to attract the insect. Here, no need for the petal to be bright and correct color, right? Now, no scent or nectar, no need of good smell or no need of sugary substance because it's not attracting the insect. But the stigma are feathery. The stigma are feathery and it is hanging outside from the flower. Why it is like this? So that it collect, if the wind bring the pollen grain from another plant, so that this stigma will collect that easily. Anther are exposed to wind. Anther also, it's hanging outside and it's exposed to wind so that the pollen can easily be blown away. Pollen grain are very small and light. The pollen grain that develop in these flower that are small, very small and light. Why? Because it is transferring by wind. So that should be light so that the wind take it from one flower to another flower easily. Okay? And the pollen grain develop in these flower uh, in large number. Why? Because there is more chances of pollen grain wastage. So is it happening through wind? So more chances that many pollen grain may become like wastage of pollen grain is more. Because of that reason, large number of pollen grain are producing. Is it clear? Okay. Now this is comparison of insect and wind pollinated flower. You can study it, please. As I discussed already, all these points, please. Okay, now process of fertilization and flowering plant, how it is happening. First of all, you should know about this is carpel, like female reproductive part of plant, stigma, style, and ovary, right? So this one you can see here, this is a male reproductive part of plant. So from this male reproductive part of plant, from this enter the pollen grain will transfer to this stigma, right? So you can see these are the part of carpel, stigma, style, and ovary. So let's see how the process of fertilization happening. First of all, you can see it here, the pollen grain land on sticky stigma and produce a pollen tube. Is the pollen grain fall on the stigma, so that will start to produce pollen tube. This pollen grain contain haploid nuclei. That through that pollen tube, that haploid nuclei will transfer to reach toward this ovule, and this ovule there will be egg cell. Okay, now let's see. This is pollen tube. So pollen tube containing the male nuclei grows down through the style. So style actually provide a pathway for the this pollen tube. So through this pollen tube, now this is haploid nuclei of pollen grain. It is transferring to the ovule. The pollen tube continue until it reach to the ovule in the ovary. Now you can see it here. This pollen tube just reach now to the ovule. The male nuclei in pollen tube fuses with egg nuclei and ovule. This is male nuclei and this is female nuclei. It's present in the ovule within embryo sac. So here the both will fuse. Here the process of fertilization will take place, right? All right, so you can see this is ovule and this is ovary. That's this yellow color is ovary, right? Now the fertilized egg, then when the process of fertilization happens, so after that the fertilized egg will then divide by mitosis and grow into a seed which will become a new plant. So this fertilized egg will start a process of mitosis and that will develop into seed, right? While this wall of the ovary will develop into fruit. The layers around the ovule harden and become the seed coat. The layer means the layer around the ovule. The ovule coat by a coat, right? So that integument, that's called integument. So that will convert into seed coat. And plant the ovary grow into fruit to help seed dispersal. In some plant, this ovary will become like fruit, so that another animal eat that and that help and seed dispersal. Seed dispersal means spreading of seeds. So if the seed dispersal is more, so it means this plant will grow in new area. These plants will not the seed will not, all the seeds will not grow in the same place, so there will be less competition. Okay, now flower to fruit. So you can see it here how it's developing. So this is the flower, right? Sepal petal. So you can see here this is ovary wall. So the ovary wall develop into flesh of people. So you can see this is flesh of people, right? And this is ovary. So ovary develop into paper fruit, and ovule it's developed into uh, you can see it here, ovule. So that develops into seed. Is it clear? Okay, now structure of seed. So first, external appearance. You can see my micropyle. I discussed with you. It's a hole through which pollen tube enter to the ovule. Now you can see here a hole through which embryo absorb water before it germinate. But now later on, after fertilization, when the seed develop, so this micropyle is a hole through which embryo absorb water before it germinate. When the water enter to it, so that's within that seed enzyme will activate and that seed will start germination. And this is seed coat surrounded the embryo and protect it from damage, right? Damage against microorganisms such as bacteria and fungi, right? Uh, Hilum, a scare on surface of seed coat. So that is called hilum, and form when the ovule detach from the ovary wall. Is ovule attached with the ovary wall to a through a special place, right? Through a special style. So if after deattaching, so the scare remain, right? And this is called hilum. Now you can see embryo, when you open the seed, so what you can observe, like after germination, within seed there is sorry, uh, within seed there is embryo, right? So when the process of germination start, so one part of the embryo will develop into shoot and that will growing upward, while the another part will going downward, so that is called radical. So plumule is the part of embryo that develop into shoot, while radical develop into root. So this is embryo within seed. So the part of embryo that is develop, that develop into shoot, plumule, while radical, if you are forgetting, are for root, so that develop into root, that is called radical. Okay, and this is cartiladen. Cartiladen actually, its act is a food store. It contains starch and protein to supply food from for the plumule and radical to develop. Is it clear? Now, what is germination? When the seed exposed to favorable condition, right? So that need like water, temperature, and oxygen. When when the seed exposed to favorable condition means when these factor are there, like water, temperature, and oxygen are there, so that seed will start to convert into seedling, that will start to convert into new plant. So that process is called germination. For germination, water is necessary. Is water hydrate the protoplasm to mobilize enzyme to hydrolyze to store food. Is the water is necessary because water need for the active, for the mobilization of enzyme, and that enzyme actually converting, like starch, it will convert into amylase enzyme will convert that into maltose, right? And such as like other enzyme like protein, a protease enzyme will activate, and that will also convert protein into amino acid, and that play important role in seed germination. Is this, if the starch is converted into glucose, and glucose will provide energy for the initial development or for the seed germination. Okay, and temperature also necessary for seed germination, because for the enzyme activation, the enzyme need optimum temperature, so to enable the enzyme to work, so for that warm temperature necessary. Oxygen for aerobic respiration. Remember, is temperature increasing the kinetic energy of the molecule? If the temperature is optimum, if the temperature is more, so more chances of collision between enzyme and substrate, right? So that's the activity of enzyme will be more. Okay, if the temperature is more, so the collision between enzyme of substrate will be more, because is it increase the kinetic energy of the molecule. Oxygen required for aerobic respiration to supply energy for growth. Okay, so these are the conditions that required for seed germination. Now you can see here, this is just experiment. Let's suppose if we take some seed and put that in a dry cotton, and here is no water. So in this tube, obviously the seed is dry cotton. The seed are there on dry cotton, and we know for the seed germination water necessary. So these seed will not germinate. Here you can see, if we take the seed and the cotton is wet, means the cotton having water. So water are there, right? But no oxygen, right? No oxygen is there. Is we put it here, pyrogalol, it absorb oxygen. So remember, it's absorbing oxygen, it means no oxygen is here. So an oxygen need for the process of respiration. So they say if no oxygen, no energy will produce, so this seed will not germinate. Okay, and NaOH, we put it here. NaOH actually absorb carbon dioxide. If carbon dioxide is produced as a result of respiration, so NaOH will absorb that. Here you can see, here the wet cotton, it means water there, but they put this tube C and refrigerator. It means the temperature is very low. If temperature is very low, so in for the enzyme, temperature is necessary, right? So this seed will also not germinate. Okay, here tube D, water, oxygen, and warm temperature are there. So all the condition, you means water, oxygen, all the thing that need for germination all are here. So this tube well, this tube, the seed in this tube will germinate. Only seed and tube D germinate. So seed need water, oxygen, and warm. Is it okay? All right. Now seed germination. The seed germinate and the first growth is seen. The store food is utilized. The store food is the, you can see here, the first growth of the seed started here is the store food is utilized. The first root and shoot began to grow and food store in the seed are still being used. The first leaves began to uncoat and photosynthesize, means the leaf develop now, so that will now start. Initially the seed were utilizing the store food, but now the leaf develop, they will start the process of photosynthesis. Okay, the food store and the seed is used up. The leaves are now fully photosynthesizing and producing all the nourishment that the plant need. Okay, thank you so much.